Sami. Where elements touch and merge, where shadows swoon like outcasts on the sand, and the tried moment waits, its courage gone, there were we, in latitudes where storms are born. Arna Bontemps, Reconnaissance. In January 2006, and after a 4-year absence, Sami, a door-sized man with soft eyes, a cliff for a nose, and shoulders the mass of Rhode Island, was finally going back to college. For the last 6 months, he had been living in his parents' house and surviving on unemployment. The days were slow and the money meager, though he had managed to squeeze in a few side trips with Anna, his girlfriend, and was basically enjoying himself. But he knew that this period in his life was cresting to an end. Now was the time to start some serious planning for the future. He was already 24 years old, after all. What he needed was a career. So Sami enrolled in a sports management program at a local private university. It's the kind of place that has well-dressed students strolling around green lawns with flat hedges and century-old trees. But instead of the luster of autumnal golds and reds that greet most new students, Sami saw the campus as gray and cold. He had arrived in January, and the leaves had abandoned their trees long before. When he showed up on campus, the other students were returning from winter break, and he would see them congregating in small groups, sitting down on benches, laughing loudly into cell phones, and hanging out in vestibules with their cigarettes. The air was cold enough to disguise smoke in breath. Sami knew no one here, so on most days he would come and go without much conversation. But he was always smiling regardless, a huge, real, and athletic grin. Sami was fundamentally happy to be in school again. The world, not just school, but the whole world, seemed open and exciting and full of possibility. One day after classes had barely begun for the semester, Sami was walking down one of the paths. Out of nowhere, he heard 2 young women calling out to him from a distance. "Yusuf, Mohammed," they called, looking right at him. "Yusuf," one called out again. "Mohammed," the other repeated, and they waved their hands madly in his direction. He looked behind reflexively, but no one was there. Confused, he shrugged them off, figuring they had the wrong guy, and continued walking. It must be a case of mistaken identity, he surmised. And then, a few days later, he passed them again. There they were, flowing dark hair and liquid eyes, and so he stopped to talk to them, especially since they were cute, vocal, and charmingly aggressive. He asked them why they were yelling at him the other day. "We were wondering if you were Arab," one of them replied, smiling straight at him. They were Palestinian from Brooklyn, like him, and they invited him to come to the next meeting of the Arab Students Club. Sami was surprised. He wasn't accustomed to people identifying him as Arab American. "Are you Spanish?" is the question he hears most of the time. His Sunset Park High School was populated mostly with Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and African Americans. All his girlfriends have been Latinas. He's darker skinned than most He's darker skinned than the rest of his family, to the point that even his father will joke with him by asking, "Are you sure you're part of this family?" Nor did he particularly identify with his Arab background. Sami's parents are Arab Christians. His Egyptian mother, a waitress at a local diner, came to New York from Cairo in 1974, and his septuagenarian father, a Palestinian from Haifa, arrived in Brooklyn in 1949, mere months after the establishment of the State of Israel, what Palestinians refer to as the Nakba, the catastrophe. But that was a long time ago, and his father, a retired cab driver who owns his own medallion, the official and coveted permit assigned to each taxi by the city, and a brownstone in Park Slope, Brooklyn, doesn't talk much about it. Sami, too, is not particularly political, especially when it comes to the upheavals of the Arab region. He sums up the paradoxisms of the Middle East with common sense talk. There will never be peace over there while there is tension even between the Arabs, he told me with Christian detachment one spring afternoon. He's a Brooklynite through and through. He spends his days at school and most nights working 2 jobs, as a security guard at a gym and as a car service driver, what he jokingly refers to as a stereotypical Arab job. But lately, his circumstances kept bringing him back to the importance of his Arab roots. So he decided to go to the campus meeting. There, he met the other Arab students at his college and began hanging out with them, partly from the ethnic tribalism that pervades much of higher education and American society at large, and partly in a search for new friends. He's naturally affable, so he got along with everyone immediately, even if most were several years his junior. But after a while, he was finding himself getting into heated arguments with some of the guys, disputes specifically over the war in Iraq and the American military presence there. The quarrels could have become heated, and they would frustrate Sami. The quarrels could often become heated, and they would frustrate Sami. But still he would continue to return to the club. It was as if he were looking for something and escaping it at the same time. I'm like the most far-off Arab you'll find, he complained to me one day when talking about his relationship with some of the guys in the club. We were sitting in the backyard of a Starbucks in Park Slope. You have to be a Muslim to be an Arab. You have to listen to Arabic music all the time to be an Arab. You have to be in love with going wherever your parents are from. And you have to marry an Arabic girl to be Arab. Certain things. You're not a real Arab if you're like me. I don't listen to Arabic music. I don't watch Arabic programming. I hate going to Egypt. I hate going overseas. I date a Puerto Rican female. Is blood thicker than water? This is a question swirling around Sami. But his disagreements with the others are less theoretical in character. Rather, they hang like talismans around his neck. When I asked him about these verbal sparrings, he reached under his collar and pulled out his dog tags. I chill with a lot of Arab guys now, and they hate these, he said, looking right through me. They hate me. How many Iraqis did They ask me how many Iraqis did I kill? How could I fight in this war? One of the guys from his university told me, there are two people whose bodies I will not pray over, Yasser Arafat and that soldier. Sami doesn't care much for the criticism. He thinks most of it is armchair politics, misplaced and misinformed. He's been to Iraq, and they haven't. He didn't kill anyone, didn't see much direct combat, and now he is strongly critical of the war, but solidly behind the troops. Yet Sami is still something quite rare in the United States today. He's an Arab-American soldier, an accidental fighter turned proud Marine who has been away from his formal education for 4 years because he has served 2 tours in Iraq.